Welcome back to the Joust About Careers podcast. I'm your host, Brian Bratt, and this week's guest is 1998 Van Buren graduate Jason Wagner, who is an art educator, entrepreneur, and musician. In this episode, Jason shares how working at a summer camp led to amazing career opportunities, including backpacking across Europe, how he sometimes looks at his career as a compilation of side hustles, how success requires hard work going hand in hand with talent, and much more. Whether you are interested in a career as a teacher, entrepreneur, artist, or are still exploring your options, I hope that what Jason shares today will help all of you make better career decisions and have fulfilling career journeys. Enjoy the show. Jason, thank you very much for joining us. And I'd like to start by just asking, how does a typical day look for you, both as a teacher at Millstream Career Center and also as an entrepreneur?
Oh, that's a great question. I start my day by getting everything turned on. I run a t-shirt company at Millstream. So I get all the equipment turned in as soon as I walk in the door because I know every day is going to be busy. And then I usually head to my office and then kind of unload a ton of emails that typically come with running a business. Make sure I got all of our invoices paid. I check all of our online accounts and make sure everything's up to date. And then just see if we have any orders. I do run a student-run business, so it relies upon the students to carry out a lot of those things. I'm just there to kind of double check and make sure everything is running as it should.
Okay. Now, as an entrepreneur, you have TimberFork Studio.
Yeah.
Are you doing a lot with that every day, or is that more on a as needed basis?
Yeah, I consider it to be more of a seasonal job. We kind of go through spurts where we make a bunch of stuff for the spring, and then through the summer, we'll continue to make and push for the holiday season. I do work with former students, so I do have a full-time or a part-time employee. His name's Austin Newman, who is a former student of mine who works in the studio throughout the year. And then I also invite former students back, or they reach out to me usually around the holidays to come in and glaze or make some work. And that's held true this year as well. So we just had an open house, and some former students came back to see me, which was always nice. And with that. And then I also play as a musician. So there's the business side of that, probably takes up more of my time, keeping my website updated and booking shows and things of that nature.
Okay. And we're going to talk about all those things more a little bit later.
Yeah.
So as you look back at yourself when you were a senior in high school, what were your plans at that point? Are you where you thought you would be in 1998, or what were you thinking?
Well, I'm pretty much where I thought I would have been in 1998. I knew that I wanted to be an art teacher, but I didn't know what all that entailed. I just knew that I really enjoyed being in Rhonda and I's class. I had been in a leadership program, a couple of them through my senior year in the community. I enjoyed that experience, and that kind of led me to believe that I wanted to be a teacher. And so, yeah, I mean, I've done a lot more than I probably would have thought I would have done at this point. But there's always the in hindsight,
right.
I could have potentially gone a couple other directions, and that would have been interesting too. But I don't know. I still think that there's a lot of life ahead, so I can continue to do some of those things.
Right. So you graduated from Columbus College of Art Design, had a degree in sculpture, and then kind of immediately went into or opened your Molten Mud business, and then also went back and started working on your master's degree at the University of Findlay.
Actually, I graduated from the Columbus College of Art and Design. And I then immediately went into grad school at the
Okay.
University of Philly. And then I connected with another Van Buren grad, Matt Drummond, and we started Molten Mud together. He ran the ceramic side of things, and I ran the glass blowing side of things. And that experience with Molten Mud was, that was one that I'll never forget, and it was just so impactful to me because we built that studio. We fabricated that whole studio from the ground up. We poured the concrete floors ourselves. We ran all the gas lines. We did have some help from Jason Hutton, another Van Buren grad, with the electrical work, but we did run some of that ourselves. But we built all of the equipment, the furnace, the glory hole, the bench. We welded and fabricated all of that stuff pre-YouTube, I might add. And so that was quite a feat for some young 23-year-olds that were very ambitious. That didn't play out the way I had hoped, but I did get lucky, and I sold that to this youth camp I worked for up in upstate New York. And eventually my brother then went on to run that glass program up there for a few years. And so it all kind of worked out in a weird way. I was able to, sell the camp and make the money back that we had invested. But man, I learned a lot through that time, and, having to sell the business was humbling, but there was a lot to learn there, and a lot of growth came out of that. So,
Right. Well, and I think, I always tell students just get started, and that's what you did. And,
right.
a lot of good things came out of that,
Sure.
that you learned from and made some money and so forth. Now, you mentioned Camp Chateaugay,
Yeah.
and how did you get started working there, and how many years were you there? And I guess, what did you learn from that experience?
Well, that whole part of my life was it was very memorable. I was in my first couple of years of teaching. Former Van Buren grad Emily Bandy, who now works for Sesame Street, was a great friend of mine, and she had worked at a camp, I believe in upstate New York as well. A camp, let's just say that somewhere.
Right.
I
Right.
can't remember the location, but man, she had just the greatest stories of meeting people from all over, like-minded, adventurous people, and I've kind of always had that spirit inside of myself. So I just on a whim decided I'm going to throw my name in out there on the old internet, which was just kind of really becoming a thing.
Right.
And I put myself out there to work at a camp as like an art instructor. And the very next day, wouldn't you know, I get a call from the owner of the camp, and I told him my qualifications, told him about the glass blowing studio, and he basically hired me on the spot to be the director of the arts program, which was really cool because they had an arts and crafts building, but they also had a dark room and ran photography. They had a ceramics area, which I was, that was right up my alley. They had a woodworking area, and we got to do rocketry through that program. And then during that time there, so I said yes, and then I went to camp. I had an incredible first summer, just kind of getting my feet wet. But then through the, then I got invited back. So I went back for the next summer, which was absolutely incredible. I met people from all over the world. And, that alone was priceless because I'm just a little boy from Van Buren. I didn't really have my eyes open to the world yet. So I started meeting all these people. And when camp ended that year, they all traveled, and I followed their journeys through Facebook. And, I started to have this little taste of wanderlust that I really just wanted to like travel and meet people.
Right.
And so I went back for a third year. And in my third year, I really hit stride, and I really learned how to like manage a large group of people. I felt very confident. And so then I started to do these incredible builds on camp. Got to make a bunch of signage and really use my skill set, not only to help the camp, but just to, really kind of proved to myself that I could do these things. I mean, I built an amphitheater there with a chainsaw and a bunch of wood that was native to the camp. And I really fell in love with those Adirondack pines. And I went back for 2 more years after that. So for a total of 5 years. And after my 3rd year of camp, though, I had lost my house in the flood.
Oh.
And so that messed up my life quite a bit. That was quite a debacle. But that did lead to me then getting creative about how I was going to deal with that. And I ended up taking a sabbatical and from teaching. I took a whole year off of teaching, and I got to backpack through Europe and lived in Australia for a while. And I took that whole year off of teaching, and that was the year that really changed my life. Again, being somebody from Van Buren, small town, just, Findlay, Ohio was about the biggest I had seen. I'd gone to Columbus, I'd gone to school in Columbus, but I was really tethered to the campus because I was slightly an art nerd. But outside of Columbus, I didn't really see much. We went to New York City on a class trip our senior year. Again, that was incredible. But those travels through Europe and meeting all those people and getting to hear what they have to think about Americans and,
Right.
I don't know. It was just a transformative experience.
Right. Yeah, I was not aware of the backpacking through Europe, so that's really
Yeah.
cool. So,
Yeah.
how long were you there doing that for a full year or?
Okay, so I was kind of there's a little bit of more of a story in here, but I did leave right when school started. So I was in Europe for about 2.5 months, almost 3 months. And I backpacked around. I had a guitar and I wrote some grants. I was fortunate enough to get some grant money out of this and bought me a laptop and a DSLR camera and a video camera. And so I was making content and I was actually blogging, but you got to remember, this is like mid 2000s. People didn't really know what blogs were at this point. But I did have a few people who followed me regularly, and I only had an iPod that I could get internet from, and I would have to like walk around the city till I found internet. So it was, I wish I could do it again with all of the opportunity with technology out there. I would really be able to do something. But I took over like 60,000 photos on that trip. My project was called Where's Wagner? A Quest for Art and Design. So I documented art, architecture, and design from Italy to the Netherlands. But I ended up going to 16 different countries. And the coolest part of it all was that then I got to visit all these people that I met at camp. So, I met people in Ireland and Scotland and England. I stayed with these families in the Czech Republic. I went backpacking through the Tatras Mountains in Slovakia with a family. And for 2 weeks, I never met anybody who spoke English. Even the guy who invited me to his home, he spoke a little bit of English. We were able to communicate through Simpsons quotes because he loved the Simpsons. So that was pretty entertaining. So then I was there. I came home. I was only home for like a month before Christmas, and then I flew out. In that time, I met my future ex-wife, and then I flew to Australia, and I met some people from camp in Australia that were friends from camp. And if I just said that, and then we lived just north of Sydney on this place called Manly Beach. It's a beautiful beach town. We lived 1 block in, and I bought a surfboard, got certified in scuba diving while I was there, and ended up getting a job because it was really expensive. So I worked in a restaurant and started doing dishes and worked my way up to help prep food. And I got to learn some stuff there. I really enjoyed that. And I was there for about 3 months, and I was just really, really longing for a relationship that I had left behind. So I ended up uh, moving back a couple months earlier than planned, and talked my girlfriend at the time into coming to camp with me, and she and her son came to camp with me for the last 2 years I was at camp,
Okay.
and then
Hmm.
the rest is history.
Right. Wow. And it's amazing how all of that came about because of working at the camp and building those relationships. And
Sure.
wow, that sounds awesome. Now,
It, yeah.
could a current high school student work at a camp like that in the summer, or would it be more for college students or people like you that are done with college?
Sure. It would be more like for people who are in college. So the camp structure, the hierarchy of camp is, there's camp counselors who are usually college students,
Right.
and I would highly recommend working at a summer camp. It's a great start to networking too.
Right.
I still talk to all these people all these years later. In fact, some of these, just a couple weeks ago, I was chatting with one of the guys via Zoom from England. That's a good friend of mine. But there is an opportunity. It's called a CIT, a counselor in training. That could be a high school opportunity. But those jobs are usually former, at least at the camp I worked at, former campers who work their way up
Right.
outside of the camper hierarchy, and they get into wanting to become staff.
Right.
But from there, you have counselors, and then even teachers, young teachers. There are opportunities to be unit leaders where you're in charge of bunks, or head staff. Lots of opportunities. If you're a student out there, or a teacher, and you're just adventurous and need to get away, this is tucked in the Adirondack Mountains on a lake. There's lots of different camps up there, but surrounded by pine trees, all sorts of activities. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm sure that is absolutely beautiful up there during the summer. So,
Yeah.
as you look at all the different ways that you're an artist, you talked a little bit about yourself being a musician, obviously a teacher, have your own businesses, so forth. Is music a hobby? I mean, I saw on your website that you've played, 30 shows this year. Is
Yeah.
it another career? How do you view that?
Oh man. uh Sometimes I think that my life is just a bunch of side hustles, and sometimes it feels like my real job is just the side hustle. They're
Right.
all side hustles. I try to give them all a little bit of time. Um, I don't know. It's I would love to make a career out of music. I don't spend enough time writing. I travel around and play other people's music. I consider myself more of a folk artist. I like to collect people's songs. If you were to catch me, I don't really play the hits. I kind of play a very curated set list. So I play for as much as I practice and play. It is, it's kind of a professional thing. Um, it's a great side hustle. Without that side hustle, I wouldn't be able to do the things with my son, go on the extra vacations and do the things that I want to just off my teacher salary. So, it's kind of become a thing that I I do because I want to do other things.
Mhm.
But no, I'd love to go on the road and do it full time. I do dabble in writing some music. I'm opening for a band called Red Wanting Blue this Friday. A band that I really got into when I was in college, and they're still touring, and so that's a pretty cool experience. And I know I'll be playing for a listening room, so I'll probably throw some of those originals out there. But I don't know. It is definitely keeps me busy. I'll
Right,
say that.
right. Now I know Maria Wigman, a Van Buren graduate. She sometimes plays with you. Are there any other VB grads?
Yeah, Alex Treese was I played in a band called the Athenry. We still play. This will be our 15th year at Logan's Irish Pub in Findlay. And that whole playing at Logan's and starting the band, the Athenry, that all came from backpacking through Europe and seeing the music scene in Dublin and wanting to bring kind of that Temple Bar vibe back to Findlay. And then next thing you know, a Irish bar opened up in Findlay, and it's like, man, I think I could do what I saw there.
Right.
And we did that. Yeah, so Alex and I, Maria's quite a bit younger than us. I still don't know how she really got into the mix, but we had a really young drummer. I think Matt Walker was his name. He's a Liberty Benton grad, and he brought her in. They were friends. So actually, she might sing with me this Friday at that show.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So as you think about your life as an artist and entrepreneur, has to be challenging at times. Like you said, you're balancing, three different things. What is it that I guess keeps you going, or what advice would you have for someone who is maybe in the arts here at Van Buren and looks at you and says, wow, this is what I'd like to do? Based on your experiences, what advice would you give to that student?
Well, I would suggest that it's a lot of hard work and dedication. It takes a creative brain and patience. Probably one of the biggest things is, depending on what level they would like to achieve, it's probably not going to happen around here. My brother is working in Dayton, and I think, a bigger city like Dayton or Columbus is going to offer more to a creative type. There is a lot of money to be made as a creative, and but just not around Findlay, Ohio. I'm not saying we're not cultured, but we do lack the culture of a big city and the buy-in to the arts a little bit in our kind of small bubble that we live in. I would encourage somebody, and I would really encourage them to get out of Findlay and go see other places and make a home. But it's certainly possible. But networking is really important. A lot of what I do is a lot of the connections I've made is all through networking, being involved in the community. And you got to love it and just have a passion for it, because it would be nice to have a job where you make bonkers amount of money, outside of education. And, if only I could rely on all those nice drawings kids have given me through the years as payment for things, but yeah, I mean, the design careers are abundant, and it is super competitive, I guess. Right. That would be another thing. When I went to CCAD, I was, I by no means was I the best artist at Van Buren. There were some of my classmates who were better than I just chose to go to art school. When I got to art school, I was a very small fish in a much larger pond of kids who grew up going to art class in Columbus, and those they take that a lot more serious than we did at Van Buren. So that was eye-opening, and I think that's the other thing to be aware of, that talent can take you very far, but it's that hard work and that just relentless dedication to the craft that will to propel you a little bit further.
Right. Now you mentioned, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I certainly wasn't the most talented person in art school, but I certainly put in the time to close the gap to catch up to some people.
Right. You mentioned Rhonda Nye earlier, former art teacher here at Van Buren. Were you involved in choir and band also at Van Buren, or was it more of the art classes that you were focused on?
I certainly was in the choir and band. I had Mr. in body for choir. I was also in show choir. I was a dance captain and a couple of years. And we still like to joke about that. And I also had Mr. Aiken in band. And I took band from, I think, 5th grade till middle school. And then I don't know why I didn't stick with it. I took a year off. And then I came back and played in the band again. And then I took some time off. I was just really involved in a lot of different things. I was actually in the musicals as well. And I played football and wrestled and ran track. So that's the other cool thing about going to Van Buren is that you can do all that. Now that I'm teaching in Findlay City schools, I tell the kids sometimes like, I did this, and this. And they're like, no way. And I'm like, seriously, at a small school, it's awesome because
Right.
you have to. The community, those teams and groups and activities don't function if people don't, get involved in numerous different things. And I honestly think that's why I've got this hustle that I do because of my time at Van Buren. I liked being involved in all the different things.
Right. Right. Yeah, definitely can stay busy here. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, really interesting stories, and I think it's interesting how so much of your career journey has been based on you just doing and taking action and all those opportunities that it opened. As you look back on what you know now about careers, what
Mhm.
is it that you now know that you wish you had known when you were back in high school?
Mm. Well, man, this is a loaded question, Mr. Bratt, because I will say getting into education specifically, if I could talk about that real quick. Um, and I always start to feel really emotional when I think about it, but man, teaching is so hard. Not from a teaching standpoint, but just you build these amazing relationships with students, especially in Findlay City schools over the years. My tank has been depleted. My emotional ability to, work with kids and hear some of the hardships they go through, and you can only take so much of that. And I really underestimated the connections with the kids, and the impact that you can have as a teacher. But then some of these students, they really rely on you. You're the only attention they get. You hear some of their the stories from their home life or the things they've been through in life, and really, it's really humbling. And so, I thought I was just going to be an art teacher. I'm not trained to be a counselor, and so that's been tough. But outside of education, it does take money to do the fun things in life. And I kind of I don't necessarily I think I could have done more than be a teacher. And like I said at the beginning, I still plan on doing more. There's still a lot of stuff I want to do. I can't wait to retire just so I can start some other side hustles.
Right.
There's a lot more that I want to do and accomplish. But it really takes a special person to, you know, dedicate their time to education. And you know well, you're you're a teacher, so people who aren't in education, they just don't seem to get it sometimes. I think that we as educators don't get enough credit for what we're really doing in the classroom every day. So
Right. Well, I really appreciate you sharing all that. And I should also bring up that you were a Golden Apple Award winner. So again, I think that passion that you have for teaching, that passion you have to help students and see them grow and excel, I think is very apparent because of all of that. So I really appreciate you sharing all of this. And I hope that some potential teachers, entrepreneurs, artists, that they will see this and maybe even reach out to you and continue to ask questions or follow your journey and see or be inspired by that. So I really
sure.
appreciate it, Jason, and good luck as you continue your career journey.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate it.
If you liked this Joust About Careers episode, you can explore previous episodes and highlights to learn about even more careers of Van Buren graduates. To be sure you don't miss upcoming episodes, please click subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform so you'll know when the next episode is released. Thank you for spending a portion of your day with us, and we hope you will continue to prepare for your future by learning just about careers.